What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton's greatest ally at Ferrari is not within the team but with a rival? Why did Alpine boss Flavio Briatore decide to come to his defense when everyone was writing him off after the Singapore Grand Prix? The 2025 Singapore Grand Prix not only represented a technical debacle for Ferrari, but also a brutal psychological blow for Lewis Hamilton during his time as a prancing horse driver. Since the traffic light came on, the SF25 began to demonstrate what many within the Maranello factory already feared but did not dare to publicly acknowledge. The car had structural design defects that compromised its performance in certain conditions, particularly on highly thermally demanding urban circuits such as Marina Bay. As soon as the race began, Hamilton and his teammate Charles Leclerc received radio orders to apply the lift and coast strategy, a desperate tactic that consists of releasing the accelerator long before the braking point to reduce the thermal load on the brakes. But when this strategy is activated from the second lap of an almost 2-hour race, the message is clear. The car is at the limit of its reliability and cannot compete. The decision that led to this scenario was made long before F1 landed in Singapore. During the design phase of the SF25, Ferrari chose to modify the front brake cooling system with the aim of improving the aerodynamic efficiency of the car. On paper, this decision seemed to offer benefits in top speed and cornering on more open circuits. However, the team's internal data, obtained during wind tunnel simulations and CFD software, already showed potential risks in urban layouts where airflow is limited. The mistake was underestimating the seriousness of those warnings. Engineers found that, under real racing conditions, temperatures in Hamilton's left front brake were not only higher than expected, but reached peaks of almost 1,200 degrees Celsius. That figure is not only technically alarming, but it represents a dangerous scenario. This is a difference of 150 degrees with respect to the opposite brake, creating a brutal imbalance that makes any type of aggressive riding impossible. It wasn't a driving error. It was an irremediable mechanical limitation. This thermal imbalance prevented Hamilton from finding confidence in the braking zones, especially in tight corners where precision is key. The British driver, known for his talent for braking late and with surgical precision, found himself limited by a car that required conservative driving, far from his style. Every time he tried to attack, the car responded unsteadily, forcing him to back off and accept that he couldn't fight. The situation got worse as the laps went by. The 5-second penalty for a minor infraction, which in another context would not have been decisive, became the final blow. Combined with the performance compromised by the brakes, that penalty relegated Hamilton from what would have been a modest but important 8th place to the bottom of the midfield, losing key points for both him and Ferrari in the fight against Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. But the most disturbing thing came after the race. In private conversations leaked to Italian media, Riccardo Adami, Hamilton's track engineer, acknowledged that the problems had already been identified since the winter. Pre-season simulations indicated an obvious risk in brake thermal management, especially in low ventilation conditions. However, for reasons not yet clarified, Ferrari's technical management decided not to make structural changes before the start of the calendar. This information completely changed the narrative. What seemed like a specific technical error became a crisis of institutional trust. Ferrari not only failed in its technical execution, it failed in its decision-making culture. He chose to ignore warning signs in order to gain a theoretical advantage on the aerodynamic table, sacrificing reliability. And that bet ended up exploding in one of the most demanding and media scenarios of the entire season. This episode wasn't just a bad race. It was the most obvious symptom of a team trapped between the desire for innovation and the inability to execute with technical rigor. And for Hamilton, it represented a clear message. At Ferrari, individual talent is not enough if the structure is not willing to learn from its mistakes. In the midst of the public humiliation that the Singapore disaster meant for Ferrari, when media critics and the paddock itself began to harshly point out Lewis Hamilton as one of the main people responsible for the result, an unexpected figure appeared who altered the course of the conversation: Flavio Briatore. His intervention was not a simple gesture of solidarity, but a calculated move, a strategic statement with deeper implications than it appears at first glance. Briatore, current boss of Alpine and one of the most influential figures in the modern history of Formula One, has a long history as a discoverer of talent, relentless executor of political strategies within the sport and builder of championships. His track record includes leading Fernando Alonso to the title in 2005 and 2006, but also surviving scandals such as the Crashgate case in 2008, earning him a reputation as a cunning, controversial, and always power-oriented operator. Your opinion matters. and when he chooses to express it, he does so with intention. In an interview with Radio Rai, Briatore stated unambiguously that, sooner or later, Hamilton will solve the problems. This seemingly simple phrase contains a forceful thesis. Hamilton is not Ferrari's problem. It is part of the solution. Their support is not only emotional or media, it is technical and structural. Briatore understands, better than many in the paddock, that the current context of Formula One is in full transformation, and that the 2025 and 2026 seasons will be pivotal years in which the teams that best adapt to the regulatory changes will be able to completely reinvent their hierarchy on the grid. What makes your defense powerful is the moment in which it occurs. When Ferrari began to distance itself from responsibility, suggesting that Hamilton's performance had not been up to par, Briatore puts the focus on where it really should be: the car, the structure, the technical management. He is implicitly saying that Hamilton doesn't need to prove anything. His record speaks for itself. What you need is an environment that understands how to maximize your strengths, that listens to your feedback, that makes the necessary corrections. And that, at this moment, Ferrari is not doing. But there is also a political reading behind Briatore's words. His support for Hamilton is not just a defense of a driver with whom he has no contractual relationship. It is a warning to the F1 ecosystem. He's pointing out that even historic teams can lose their way if they don't understand the nature of the changes ahead. Briatore has experienced several regulatory transitions in Formula One and knows that cycles of dominance do not end by accident. They end because other teams manage to anticipate the new rules before they come into force. In that context, his support for Hamilton can be understood as a forecast for the future. If Ferrari listens to its driver and makes bold decisions, it can lead the next era. What makes this intervention even more interesting is that it does not come from an internal ally. Briatore is, in theory, a direct rival as Alpine boss. That he speaks out in favor of Hamilton instead of taking advantage of the moment to weaken him in the media is a powerful message. He is saying that the sport needs figures like Hamilton in the championship fight, and that the narrative that it is in decline is not only wrong, but detrimental to F1's competitiveness. What happened in Singapore was just a symptom of a deeper illness. Because beyond the visible frustration on the track and Ferrari's mechanical collapse, what is really at stake is something more complex and strategic. The way in which the 2025 season has become a transitional terrain for the silent war that will define the new order of Formula One from 2026. And in that transition, every decision counts. Every mistake pays double. Every success can cement a future champion. Lewis Hamilton arrived at Ferrari with almost mythical expectations. After more than a decade at Mercedes and after having won 7 world titles, the Briton was looking for more than a sporting revenge. He was looking for a rebirth. His change of team was not an impulsive or purely emotional decision. It was a calculated move, aimed at the change in the technical cycle that is coming in the sport. Hamilton did not come to Ferrari to win in 2025. He came to build the foundations of something that he can dominate in 2026. But that mission depends on Ferrari understanding the historical moment in which it finds itself. Currently, the Italian team is caught between two extremes. On the one hand, it has the technical potential, the resources, and the human talent to fight in the elite. On the other hand, it carries an internal culture of conservative decisions, poorly calculated bets, and an obsession with image that usually comes before functionality. The aerodynamic design of the SF25 demonstrates this. They opted for a concept that prioritized aesthetics and efficiency in the wind tunnel, but without fully considering its performance in real conditions. And the result was what we saw in Singapore. And this is where the 2026 factor comes in. The next regulatory revolution will not just be a change in hybrid engines or aerodynamic concepts. It will be a complete reorganization of the power map in Formula One. New designs, new priorities, new development windows. And the teams that best prepare that transition will be the ones that can start that era with an advantage. Hamilton knows it because he already lived it. It was the protagonist of the hybrid revolution of 2014, which catapulted Mercedes to absolute dominance. Understand that the pilot who best collaborates with the engineers to interpret the future, not only from the cockpit but from technical planning, will be the one positioned to lead this new era. Is Hamilton a victim of a dysfunctional structure, or is he really far from his best version? Can Ferrari allow itself to be transformed by his presence, or will it repeat its historical mistakes? Leave me your opinion in the comments. If you want to follow every step of this story, if you are interested in understanding not only what happens on the track, but why it happens, subscribe and activate notifications.